Hey, so I somewhat recently started reading Alice in Borderland, and I have to say, it blew my expectations out of the park. But you'll have to watch more to see if it's in a good or a bad way, haha. Spoilers for the Alice in Borderland manga. Without further ado, let's get right started. So I have currently read the first 6 volumes of Alice in Borderland. I suppose you could call them omnibuses, so I guess I've read 12. In total, there are 9 volumes, aka 18 if you want to count them as singles. So I haven't read it fully yet, so I can't talk about the ending, but I will definitely talk about what I have read. I suppose I should start off by talking about some basics. Alice in Borderland's story and art was done by Asahara, who you might recognize as the author of Zom 100. Alice in Borderland is an 87 chapters long series with a total of 18 volumes, with Viz releasing the series as a 2-in-1 omnibus, with a total of 9 volumes for the English readers. It published from November 25th, 2010 to March 2nd, 2016 on Shonen Sunday Super. Alice in Borderland has one anime adaptation by Studio Silverlink and Connect. It was 3 episodes long, adapting the first 3 games, but it skipped a lot of details. So with introductions out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. The story follows Arisu, a seemingly nobody, with no future, with 2 of his friends, Karube and Chota. Karube is the only one who seems to have a future, as he already has a business of his own, which Arisu admires Karube. They're all hanging out until suddenly they all 3 see some fireworks that bring them into this mysterious land. At first, they just goof around thinking that it's just a dream. Karube is the only one that eventually tells them that it might not be a dream, which the other 2 want to deny at first, but with time they won't be able to deny the situation that they're in. They enter some dome where there's one other girl, and she seems very annoyed that she has to babysit first time. She tells them if they just follow her instructions, they will live to see another day. They're all very confused, but then suddenly a screen lights up and starts explaining the rules. They have to take out cards where they will see their fortune. They all take theirs out, and Arisu gets terrible fortune, which sends hundreds of arrows their way. And Karube shows everyone why Arisu is the type that survives these types of games. It's his observation and thinking skills. With Arisu's skills, they all manage to survive. Sure, it is barely, but a win is a win. Chota is very injured after the game, so Karube and Arisu start trying to gather more information about this place and trying to find a way out, while this other girl, who I'll call her by her name now, Shibuki, stays behind with Chota to care for Chota, while the others are gone. And it's at this point when the narrator points out that it is this point when everyone starts drifting apart. Ryohei manages to start up a car and get the radio on and gets a message about the beach, which will be very important later. Arisu is just happy to be alive. Arisu also sees what happens if your visa runs out. Pretty much, you die. Visas are like your lifeline. If you have no days left on your visa, then you die. You can increase the amount of time on your visa by winning games. For example, if you win a 7 of Spades game, you get 7 more days on your visa. If you win a 4 of Hearts game, you get 4 more days on your visa. Arisu and Ryohei tell Chota and Shibuki that they will go to a new game without them, and that they will go on another game when Chota's leg is better. So they do. In the new game, it's pretty much hide and seek. There is one seeker and a bunch of hiders. Later, it turns out the killer was also a player, and he was just playing his own game. I won't talk about this game much, but pretty much everyone dies, apart from Arisu, Ryohei, and this very important dude, Chisiya. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't like his name because it's hard to pronounce. Or at least he seems important for now. Thinking back, he hasn't exactly done much apart from betray Arisu once. And we also meet Usagi for the first time. She seemed like a semi-important character at this point, but not yet. After the game, Usagi tells Arisu that she'd rather not go with them because then at some point, they'd have to fight against each other, which she didn't want. Which is really ironic considering the next game. After the game, Chota is still recovering and with Shibuki aiding him, but they start talking bad things about Arisu and Ryohei. Or maybe not bad things, but more like how they are nothing like them, and they end up sleeping together. While Arisu and Ryohei are working their asses off to find a solution. This is a huge deal because it was both Arisu's and Chota's goal to have sex with someone, as they were both virgins. But it was the next game that blew me away. It was just them 4. Arisu, Ryohei, Chota, and Shibuki. They had to play another hide and seek game, but this time 3 people would die and 1 person would. It was closer to anti-hide and seek at first, but towards the end, the name made itself clear. The wolf would be the sole survivor, and the 3 sheep would die. Chota was the first wolf, but he fucked up and gave it to Shibuki on accident. Then it transfers a few times in the chaos, and Arisu ends up being the wolf. He hides, but suddenly tells everyone to come under the screen. He was giving his role away. Everyone was confused at first, but as Arisu explained, it made more sense. And Ryohei says he was thinking the same thing, and tells Arisu that he won't come to him to steal his role. So does Chota right after that, telling him that he couldn't survive in a world without his friends. As Arisu starts panicking about that he can't be the sole survivor, Shibuki says says, "Sorry, I won't throw my life away for some strangers." But in the next panel, she says, "How could I take it away now? That would be too unfair." It seems explaining why he was giving it away was Arisu's biggest blunder. No one was coming to take his role away, and Arisu was running around desperate to find someone, saying it's too unfair and why would they hide? But time is not waiting on him. Time is quickly ticking, and the name of the game finally explains itself. Arisu, the one who should be in theory hiding, is looking for someone to pass the role on to, while the three others, in theory, should be looking for Arisu to steal the role, are hiding. A true hide and seek. As time runs out, Ryohei says that Arisu is the best friend a guy could ask for. Jota says that he'll see him later, and Shibuki says that he has to live on for her too. And then, boom. Time runs out and Arisu is the only one alive. He leaves the arena. I suppose you could say shell shock, as there is a little text congratulating him and giving him a steak as it is good for his health after hearty exercise. He throws the plate on the ground and has a breakdown. This scene was so impactful for me. It was insane. He lights up the entire place on fire and is laying on the ground. When Usagi approaches from behind and asks him, "Do you want to live too?" Alright, I have yapped way too much for these games, so I will shorten the games a bunch. So, moving on to the next big arc. As Arisu is finally coming back to his senses slightly, Usagi keeps feeding Arisu daily until he's ready to start doing something again. He mentions about going to the beach, and so they do. After a bunch of chapters, they make it and there are immediately so many revelations. First, the Hatter is the #1 and shows Arisu and Usagi, the newcomers, how they do things. They go on games very often, so they can collect cards, because apparently, if you collect every card, one person can leave. They needed 3 more cards. 10 of hearts, 7 of hearts, and 4 of spades. I'm not sure about that last one. Oh yeah, and also not including the face cards. And since the game Arisu won but lost all his friends to was 7 of hearts, they got 1 more card they needed. They were going to boost up the rank of the one who got the card. Usagi was about to say it was Arisu who got it, but Arisu interrupts her and says that she was the one who got it. We later learned that it is now his life's mission to get Usagi out of these games. There are 2 main groups in the beach. They're led by 2 different leaders with 2 different ideologies. The Hatter was more of a pacifist in that sense, because the other group was a very force-led group led by Aguni. The #2, there was a perfect balance between the teams, but then suddenly the Hatter dies one day and the #1 spot goes to Aguni. Chishiya is also important in this arc, as there is a safe in the beach which has a code only the #1 knows, but the code transfer is supervised by the 10 highest ranking officials. Chishiya is more of a double agent and tells Arisu when he can go up to the safe to steal the cards. Arisu agrees and goes to the safe, but no one knew the code, even Chishiya and the current #1. But Arisu could figure it out that boss was spelled very similarly to 8055, which was the code. Arisu sneaks up to #1's room while he is away and tries to open the safe. He inputs the code, but it's wrong. And even worse, the #1 and some of the other high-ranking officials are behind him and start beating his fucking ass. And one of them notices Arisu has only 1 day left on his visa, and they decide to leave him for dead so they can feel his death arrive. They duct tape his eyes, mouth, and body. He can't do anything. All he can do is await his death. But then, as time approaches, a game appears on the beach. The 10 of hearts. Also, the 4 of spades was got before. I forgot when exactly. They have to find the witch and burn them. This goes horribly, and so many innocent lives are taken, all while Arisu can't do anything. After a lot of struggling and events I will skip over because I don't want this video to be too long, Arisu breaks free from his mouth restrictions and calls out for help to Usagi. He was actually looking for him, and they managed to break free Arisu. And the MC is back in the game. Usagi has a squad of 2 or 3 more people with her, and it later turned out that one of them was the witch. And we also get a backstory of how Hatara and Aguni are actually best friends, and that backstory. And also, it was confirmed that Aguni actually killed Hatter, and it was low-key kinda sad. After that, of course, the beach disbands, with like 2/3 dead, if I remember correct. And we move on to the final story arc, the face cards. Now, I only managed to read the first of those games, but it was fantastic. It was the King of Clubs game. I could talk about this game for hours, but this video is already long enough as it is, so I'll sadly just have to briefly talk about the main things. Before this, there was the broadcast congratulating the players that they managed to get every non-faced card, and the next phase can finally start. And now, only the face card games were going to happen. Arisu and Usagi approached the King of Clubs game, and they see that to enter the King of Clubs game, they needed 5 players. The players ended up being Arisu, Usagi, Niragi, Kuina, and Tata. Tata was such a side character before this game, man. The game is simple. Each team starts with 10,000 points. The players on each team decide how much to divide between each other. There are also bases, which if the opponent team touches your base, they get 10,000 points. But if someone from the same team touching the base, that gives infinite points. There are also 10 random items scattered throughout the map, letting players get between like 500 to 3,000 points. And finally, there are battles. Pretty much, if two people from opposite teams touch hands, they enter a battle in which whoever has the most points comes out victorious, giving them 250 points from the opponent. But after the battle, they both enter a non-battle state, which if someone grabs them to enter a battle while they are still in that non-battle stage, they both get electrocuted, which apparently can't kill anyone, but it's more than enough to knock someone out. Oh yeah, to get out of the non-fighting phase, you have to touch your own base. So those are the main rules, but I'll just have to go over the most important things that happen. First, the point distribution of Arisu's team goes for is Arisu 4,600, Usagi 300, Niragi 4,700, Queen at 300, and Tata 100. Tata will be the goalkeeper, and so he needs the bare minimum points as he will be touching the base constantly for infinite points. They decided to go with these points because Usagi and Queen are both fast runners, so they can act as scouts and run away from battles. And if they do end up in a battle, then they can survive and go back to the base with 50 points. Now, if it was fair, then the medium speed runners were supposed to be handed the 4,600 and 4,700. But since Niragi is a cocky motherfucker and Tata was more introverted, Niragi just told him off and took his place, even though Niragi was a slow runner and Tata was a medium runner. The reason 4,600 and 4,700 were thought of was for the medium speed runners to be somewhat close to the fast speed so they can together enter battles. It's another aspect I forgot to tell you of. If you hold hands with someone while battling, you combine your points and split the points you win and lose as well. So the main things are Arisu battles Kyuma, the king of clubs, and it turns out that he evenly distributed the points, even to the goalkeeper, which shocked Arisu. Arisu's team scouts' main job were just to scout out the area and to grab the items, which goes amazing at first, but then Kyuma changes his strategy. Tata is alone as the goalkeeper, but Kyuma and 3 others approach the base. They intend to run at the base, not caring if Tata is there, willing to touch the base even if they die. So they run, and Tata manages to kill one of them, while the rest of them now have plus 10,000 more points, each of them. And now, Kyuma's team is far in the lead. With a similar attempt to get points, Usagi lures one of the guards away, surviving herself while her opponent plummets to the ground after a bunch of chasing. Then Kuina does a similar thing as Usagi and gets another out of the game, and with some clever planning, Arisu's team gets another 10,000 in the bank. But that is not enough. It seems that all hope is lost. No one is trying. Apart from Kuina, who is still running around trying to find the last item worth 2,000 points, which won't even be enough to catch up, but she says that she can't go out doing nothing. Niragi is still the same scumbag as before and tries to rape Usagi again, even grabbing the broken part of Usagi's arm to get her to not resist, which is fucking brutal. But Arisu this time saves Usagi with a flying knee to Niragi's face and then starts absolutely kicking his ass, like holy fuck. We also get a backstory of Niragi, which is actually brutal, but like that isn't an excuse to be a fucking, you know what? It's not even worth talking about him anymore. Arisu thanks Tata for something he did before the game, which inspired Tata to take action. Since Tata had killed one of the opponents, he had 10,100 points, which are doing nothing pretty much. And he tells Arisu to chop off his arm with the door, which was absolutely brutal. Arisu, after a shit ton of convincing, does it. And sadly, Tata ends up bleeding out. But not before we get his backstory, which isn't exactly a sad one, but he didn't have an easy life, that's for sure. Then, Arisu, with Tata's hand, with the bracelet with the points in his pocket, he approaches Kyuma. His acting skill is impeccable. Or it wasn't even acting, I think it was in the end. He asks Kyuma to shake his hand. Kyuma does. And Arisu wins the battle, changing the points last seconds to Arisu's team's win. After some revelation, Arisu realizes that he'd rather die than Kyuma, and as he respects him so much. And it turns out that Kyuma was once a human too, but it's too late, and Kyuma dies. And so Arisu runs to Tata to make sure he's alive and to treat to his injuries, only to find him dead. He immediately goes over to the wall and starts banging his head in. He can't take another life. Tata was too innocent. It takes Kuina to drag him away to finally stop. They set up a memorial for Tata and say their goodbyes. Niragi also goes to the grave, but he insults Tata. But in the end, he thanks Tata for letting him live another day. In the end of this volume, we see Arisu's new resolve. It's not to participate in another game. There's a lot of character development between Usagi and Aris, and in more ways than one, if you know what I mean. And then suddenly this scene happens, which I don't even know how to describe, so I'll just let you see for yourself. Alright, that's all I can talk about. This is where volume 6 ends off pretty much. So yeah, the only gripe I have with Alice in Borderland is that in the physical volumes, nearly half of the volume is just side stories, which are definitely interesting, but I want to read the actual main story too. Like the 5th omnibus, it is literally 50% side story. That's crazy. But as I said at the start of the video, that my expectations were blown out of the park with this manga. And if you didn't realize until now, it is of course in a good way. I fucking love Alice in Borderland. It's literally my favorite manga. I will definitely make more videos about Alice in Borderland in the future. Alright, that's it for me. Please tell me in the comments down below. Do you like Alice in Borderland? What do you like about it? I'm genuinely interested in hearing your opinions. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, as I've set a goal of posting every single Monday without exception. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!